On a freezing night when even the moon refused to shine, an Omega girl with no wolf carried a dying king through a blizzard. She didn't know his name. She didn't know he was royalty. All she knew was that if she let go, he would die. But what she didn't know was that saving him would awaken a power buried at her birth, expose a betrayal older than she was, and drag her into a prophecy that promised she would either save the wolf kingdom or burn it to the ground. This is the story of the lost Luna, and the king destined to fall for her. Alis Thorn had lived alone in the Frostvale Mountains for almost 4 years, and in all that time, she had learned one truth: the mountain never showed mercy. It didn't care that she was an Omega. It didn't care that she had once been part of a pack. It didn't care that she was a girl whose wolf had never spoken a single word to her. But Alis understood the mountain, and in a strange way, it understood her. That morning, she had gone out early to check the traps she'd set near the frozen river. The sky had been clear then, a pale blue that looked cold even from a distance. But Frostvale was unpredictable. By midday, grey clouds rolled in thick and heavy, swallowing the light. Snow started falling in large flakes that clung to her eyelashes and hair. Alis pulled her fur-lined hood tight around her face. This storm came too fast, she muttered to herself. I need to hurry. Her boots crunched through the deepening snow as she headed back toward her cabin. Every few seconds she glanced up at the sky, watching the clouds darken. She had lived here long enough to know the signs of a real blizzard, the kind that could bury a wolf alive. But even with the storm threatening, she walked steadily. Panic never helped anyone. That was something her father used to say before he died. She shook away the memory. She had no time to dwell on the past. The wind picked up, howling between the trees. Snow swirled around her like angry spirits. Visibility dropped fast. She had maybe an hour before the storm became deadly. Alis adjusted the bag over her shoulder and pushed forward. Until a deep, broken roar shook the air. She froze. Another sound followed. A heavy crash. Then struggling breaths. Alis stiffened. Something's out there. Her instincts screamed at her to keep walking. Storm first. Survival first. But another groan echoed, louder this time. Full of pain. Her wolf, normally silent, weak, and distant, suddenly pushed at her mind. Help. The whisper was faint, like a tiny breeze, but it was there. Alis stumbled a step in shock. My wolf. Did you just? Another roar cut through the storm. Alis gritted her teeth. Fine. I'm going. She followed the sound deeper into the trees. Snow whipped at her face, making each step harder. But she kept going, guided by the faintest trail of crushed snow and droplets of dark red. Blood, Alis whispered. Fresh. After a few more steps, she saw it, a giant dark shape lying half buried in snow. Her breath caught. It was a wolf. A massive wolf. Unlike anything she had ever seen. Its fur was almost black, but streaked with faint red glimmers, like embers woven into the fur. Its size alone made her heart stop. This wolf was at least 3 times bigger than any normal shifter. Blood soaked its side, steaming in the cold air. More blood dripped from its mouth, staining the snow beneath it. Moon above, she whispered. What happened to you? The wolf's eyes flickered open. They glowed a burning gold, bright even through the storm. Alis took an instinctive step back. No regular wolf could survive injuries like this. No regular wolf could have that much aura, that much presence, even while dying. Easy, she whispered. I'm not going to hurt you. The wolf let out a weak growl, but it wasn't threatening. It sounded like fear. Like exhaustion. Alis knelt slowly, her heart racing. I can't leave you here, she said softly. You'll die. Her wolf whispered again, a little louder this time. Help him. Alis hesitated only a second longer before placing her hand on his fur. A shock tore through her. Not pain. Not fear. But power. Warm, bright power shot up her arm and spread across her chest. Her limbs felt lighter. Her breathing steadier. Her wolf, usually silent, growled awake, fully alert for the first time in her life. Alis pulled her hand back, gasping. What was that? The wolf's eyes locked onto hers, as if he knew exactly what she felt. When she touched him again, The power returned, even stronger. Her hands stopped shaking. Her mind cleared. Her muscles filled with strength she had only felt in dreams. Alice stared at her hands in disbelief. This can't be real. But the storm didn't care about her shock. The wind grew harsher. Snow began to pile faster. "We need to move," she said. She slid her arms beneath the wolf's massive body. He was enormous, easily the weight of 10 men. Impossible to lift. Or it should have been. But when her hands touched him, her strength surged again. With a grunt, she lifted him onto her shoulders. Her knees didn't buckle. Her back didn't break. It felt natural. Alice adjusted her grip and stepped forward. 6 miles to the cabin. In a storm that wanted to kill them both. Her wolf whispered, "Go." And she did. The journey became a blur of white snow, freezing wind, and the rhythmic sound of her boots crunching through the ice. The wolf's blood slowly soaked through her coat, warm but fading. "Stay with me," she whispered over and over. "Don't you dare die on me now." Sometimes she felt his shallow breaths on her neck. Sometimes she didn't. By the time her cabin finally came into view, Alice nearly collapsed with relief. The small wooden home had never looked so welcoming. She pushed the door open with her shoulder and stumbled inside, lowering the wolf gently onto the fur-covered floor. Her entire body trembled with exhaustion, but the second she lost contact with him, the strange power vanished. Her arms felt like lead. Her legs shook violently. "Just hold on," she said, breathless. "I'll help you." She lit the fire, dragged her supplies forward, and knelt beside him. Up close, she could see the full extent of his injuries, deep claw marks, puncture wounds, and a strange blackish substance mixed with the blood. "Someone poisoned you," she whispered. This wasn't a normal fight. She worked quickly, cleaning each wound with warm water and herbs, just as her father had taught her. The wolf didn't move. Didn't growl. He just breathed, barely. "You're going to make it," she said softly, even though she didn't know if it was true. The wolf's golden eyes closed. Alice placed her hand on his fur once more, letting the power rush into her. "You're not alone anymore," she whispered, not sure who she was saying it to, him or herself. The next morning came with silence. The blizzard continued outside, sealing the cabin in a thick wall of snow. Alice could barely see through the small window, just a blur of white. She got up slowly, her muscles sore from the night before. She had fallen asleep against the wall, right beside the giant wolf. The first thing she did was check if he was still breathing. She held her breath as she leaned closer. One breath. Then another. She exhaled in relief. "You made it through the night." The wolf didn't respond, but his breathing was steadier than before. Alice prepared more of her healing paste, crushing herbs with practiced hands. Her father would have been proud of her skill, though she wished she'd never needed to learn it alone. She peeled back one of the bandages and froze. The wound underneath had shrunk. Dramatically. This shouldn't be possible," she whispered. The mixture of poison, silver and something darker should have taken days to counteract. Even the strongest alpha would have struggled to survive it. But this wolf's wounds were closing at a shocking speed. "It's like your body is fighting back," Alice murmured. "Like something inside you refuses to die." She applied fresh herbs and bandages, gently smoothing the fur around each injury. As she worked, she talked softly, unsure why she felt the need to fill the silence. "You're the biggest wolf I've ever seen. And your fur," she ran her fingers lightly through the black and crimson strands. "What kind of wolf looks like this?" The wolf didn't answer, of course. But being near him felt strangely comforting. Her wolf, who had been quiet again, stirred every time she touched him. "Important." The whisper was faint but firm. Alice frowned. "Important how?" No answer. She sat back against the wall, watching the fire crackle. Outside, the wind howled like 100 wolves mourning. "You know," she said softly, "I don't even know your name. I don't know where you came from. And I don't know who did this to you." The wolf's paw twitched slightly. "Maybe you're dangerous," she continued. "Maybe I should have left you out in the snow." She paused. "But something tells me I did the right thing." Her wolf hummed softly, a rare sign of agreement. Alice spent the rest of the day tending to him, checking the fire, and melting snow for water. The storm showed no signs of stopping, and she was grateful no one would be traveling in this weather. No one would find her cabin. She needed time to think. That night, exhaustion weighed on her heavily. She dragged a blanket close to the wolf's side, not touching him, but close enough to feel his warmth. "Good night," she whispered, even though she knew he wouldn't hear. Sleep claimed her slowly. But she didn't stay asleep for long. A strange warmth pulled her from sleep. Something soft and solid rested beneath her palm. She frowned and opened her eyes. Her hand wasn't touching fur. It was touching skin. A human chest. A very strong, very warm, very muscled human chest. Alice yelped and scrambled backward so fast she hit the wall. A man lay where the wolf had been. No, the same being, but shifted. He was enormous even in human form, with broad shoulders and thick, corded muscles. His skin was tanned and scarred. Long dark hair fell across his face and shoulders. His jaw was strong, covered in a short beard. His chest rose and fell in slow, deep breaths. Alice stared in open shock. What are you?" As if hearing her voice, the man's eyelids fluttered. He groaned softly, shifting slightly. Alice panicked and grabbed the nearest thing, a wooden spoon. "Don't move. I'm warning you." The man's golden eyes snapped open. Alice froze. Those were the same eyes as the wolf. The man blinked, his voice rough and low. "Where am I?" "In my cabin," Alice said quickly, gripping the spoon like a weapon. "You were dying in the snow. I dragged you here. Don't sit up. Your wounds aren't healed." He studied her silently for a moment, his gaze unreadable. "You saved me," he said softly. "Yes," she replied, swallowing hard. "I saved you." The man's gaze flicked around the cabin, the fire, the herbs, the blankets. His breathing steadied. Then his eyes returned to her. "What's your name?" he asked. "Alice Thorne," she answered automatically. "What's yours?" He hesitated, the faintest flicker of pain in his eyes. "Kale," he finally said. "Just Kale." Alice narrowed her eyes. "Is that the truth?" His jaw tightened. "It's close enough." She didn't like that answer, but she didn't push it. "You shouldn't move," she warned. "Your wounds." "They're healing," he said, looking down at his torso. "Faster than they should be." Alice stared at him. "I told you that already." Kale looked at her again, this time with a strange expression. "You carried me," he said slowly. "My wolf remembers your scent. You carried me through the storm." Alice flushed with embarrassment. "Well, yes. I couldn't leave you." Kale held her gaze with unnerving intensity. "Why?" he asked. Alice hesitated. Because you needed help." Kale studied her for several seconds. Then he whispered something that made Alice's heart skip a beat. "My wolf knows you." Alice shook her head immediately. No, that's impossible." Kale didn't argue. He simply said, "We are connected." Alice almost dropped the spoon. Connected? How? Why? And what did it mean? Her wolf whispered faintly, soft, shaky yes. And that frightened her more than anything. For a long moment, Alice just stared at the man who had been a dying wolf only hours ago. Kale sat half upright against the wall, breathing slowly, his eyes glowing faint gold in the firelight. He looked too strong. Too alert. Too dangerous for someone who almost died in her arms. Alice gripped her spoon tighter. Kale's voice was quiet but firm. "You don't have to threaten me with that." Her face heated. "It's a spoon. And it's the only thing I could grab." Kale's lips twitched, not quite a smile, but close. "I can see that." Alice lowered it but didn't drop her guard completely. The cabin felt much smaller with him awake. He was tall even sitting down, his shoulders broad enough to block half the fire's glow. His presence filled the space in a way she couldn't explain, like gravity bending around him. She cleared her throat. "How did you shift back?" "You were unconscious." "My body shifted to heal faster," Kale said simply. "Instinct." That made sense, but also didn't. Shifting drained strength. Wolves near death usually couldn't shift. Alice watched him carefully. You said your wolf knows me. What does that mean? Cale leaned his head against the wall, eyes following her, unblinking. It means your scent feels familiar. Important. Binding. Her stomach flipped. Binding how? He hesitated. His jaw flexed. I don't want to scare you. You're already doing a great job of that. That earned her a real, though small, smile. Very well, he said. I felt the pull of a bond. Alice stared at him. You mean a mate bond? Cale nodded once. Alice felt the air leave her lungs. No. No, absolutely not. That's not possible. Cale shrugged a little. I didn't say it's fully formed. Only that something is there. Alice paced the small cabin, heart racing. A mate bond. With a stranger. A man with a giant wolf and glowing eyes. Impossible. Absurd. Terrifying. No, she repeated, forcing her breath to steady. Maybe you're confused. Maybe I smell like someone else. You were poisoned. You can't trust your senses. Cale didn't argue. He simply watched her with a calm, almost patient expression. Maybe, he said. Alice hated that answer. Hated how uncertain she felt. She retreated to her small table and pretended to sort herbs. Cale watched her every move, not with suspicion, but something else, something unreadable. After minutes of silence, he asked softly, Why do you live out here alone? Alice stiffened. That's none of your business. It matters, he said. It tells me what kind of person would risk her life to save a stranger. Alice looked away. A stupid person, apparently. I disagree, Cale said quietly. You're brave. Brave. No one had ever called her that. Not her pack. Not her family. Not even herself. She swallowed. Why were you in the mountains? Cale's expression darkened, a shadow crossing his face. I was running. From what? He didn't answer. Instead, he slowly tried to get up. Alice lunged forward. Don't move. You're hurt. I'm healing. His voice was steady, but she saw the pain in the way he clenched his jaw. With a surprising amount of gentleness, he placed his hand over hers. Alice. I won't harm you. But I can't stay lying here. A shock raced through her at the contact, not like fear, not like heat, but something deeper. Something warm. Familiar. Alice jerked her hand away like she'd touched fire. Fine, she said quickly. But don't push yourself. She helped him sit up fully and gave him one of her thicker blankets to cover his torso. Cale accepted it with a nod. His gaze flicked to the window. The storm is still strong. Yes, Alice said. You're not going anywhere. Cale's eyes returned to her. I wasn't planning to. Alice froze. His tone wasn't threatening. But it wasn't casual, either. Why not? She asked carefully. Cale's eyes softened. Because my wolf doesn't want to leave you. Alice felt her breath catch. This is too much, she whispered, stepping back. You don't know me. You don't know who I am. I know enough, Cale said. You don't. So tell me, Cale said gently. Alice shook her head. Someday. But not today. Cale nodded slowly, accepting her wall. Then I'll wait. Alice stared at him. Why? Why wait? Cale met her eyes with quiet intensity. Because people like you are rare, Alice Thorne. And I don't walk away from what I'm meant to protect. Before she could respond, a sharp pain cut through the air, Cale clutching his side, breath-catching. Alice rushed to him. You're reopening your wounds. Lie back down. Reluctantly, he obeyed. She checked his bandages with trembling hands. Cale watched her with something warm in his eyes. For someone who says she doesn't care, you're very gentle. Alice glared at him. I care because it's the right thing to do. Not because of some imaginary bond. Cale smiled faintly. If you say so. Alice scowled, but her heart raced again. She didn't believe in fate. She didn't believe in destiny. But something about Cale felt important. Dangerously important. And that terrified her more than the storm outside. By the next morning, the storm outside had eased slightly, though thick snow still buried the world in silence. Alice spent most of the early hours preparing soup, checking Cale's wounds, and trying very hard not to think about what he'd said the night before. Cale sat against the wall again, calmer today, though his eyes tracked her constantly as if studying her, memorizing her movements. When she handed him a bowl of hot broth, his fingers brushed hers. Alice nearly dropped the bowl. Cale noticed. "You're nervous around me," Alice huffed. "You're a giant stranger with glowing eyes." "Of course I'm nervous." He chuckled. "Fair point." They ate in silence for a while. Then Cale set his bowl aside. "Your wolf is waking." Alice froze. "What?" "Last night," Cale said softly, "your scent changed. When you slept, your wolf stirred, like she's been locked away." Alice stiffened. "My wolf is weak. Broken. She barely speaks." "Broken?" Cale's eyes hardened. "Who told you that?" "My old pack." Cale exhaled sharply. "Then they lied." Alice frowned. Why would they lie about something like that? Cale didn't answer immediately. Instead, he motioned toward her. "Come here." "No." "Alice." "Absolutely not." "Alice." She groaned. "Fine." "What?" He gestured for her to sit in front of him. She hesitated, then sat cross-legged a few feet away. "Closer." "No." Cale raised an eyebrow. "I won't bite." "You literally have giant wolf teeth." His mouth twitched. "Not in this form." She scooted half an inch closer. "Closer," he repeated. She sighed and moved until she sat directly in front of him, her knees almost touching his. Cale extended his hand. "Let me see your wrist." Alice narrowed her eyes. "Why?" "To show you something." Reluctantly, she placed her wrist in his palm. Cale's thumb pressed lightly against her pulse point. "Breathe," he said. Alice inhaled slowly. Cale closed his eyes. "Now listen." "To what?" "To your wolf." Alice almost laughed. "My wolf barely exists." Cale shook his head. "No. She's there. But something is blocking her. Something unnatural." Alice stared at him. "That doesn't make any sense." Cale opened his eyes. "It makes perfect sense. Someone did a ritual to silence her." Alice jerked her arm back. "That's impossible. No one would do that to a baby." Cale's gaze was firm. "It would explain everything. Your weak wolf. Your lack of strength. Your isolation. Someone wanted you powerless." Alice felt dizzy. "But why?" Cale's voice softened, almost apologetic. "Because you are more powerful than you know." Alice shook her head. "No. Stop. This is insane." Cale leaned closer, gaze piercing. "Alice. When you touched me, you carried a wolf the size of a horse through a blizzard. No ordinary Omega could do that." "I don't know how it happened," Alice whispered. "Maybe adrenaline." "It wasn't adrenaline," Cale said firmly. "It was magic." "Magic is a myth." "No," Cale said quietly. "Magic is blood. Magic is lineage. Magic is truth. And you have it." Alice stared at him, chest tightening. "You don't know anything about me." Cale softened his voice. "Then tell me. Tell me why you ran from your pack." Alice looked away. "Because I was weak." "No," Cale said. "Because someone made you weak." Alice's hands trembled. She didn't want to believe him. Couldn't believe him. Her life had been shaped by that weakness. Her exile. Her loneliness. Her shame. Cale reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, he placed 2 fingers under her chin and gently lifted her face. "Alice," he whispered. "Your wolf is not broken. She is imprisoned. And I can help you free her." Her breath shuddered. "Why do you care?" Cale's expression changed, softening in a way she didn't expect. "Because when you touched me, something ancient stirred. Something I haven't felt in years." "What?" Alice whispered. Cale held her gaze. "Recognition." Alice's heart pounded. "Stop saying things like that. I'm telling the truth." "Well, I don't want your truth." Cale blinked, surprised at her sudden burst. Alice stood abruptly, pacing the small floor. "I don't want fate. I don't want destiny. I don't want some ritual past or secret power. I just want a quiet life. Alone. Safe. Kale watched her with calm patience. You saved me, Alice. That wasn't the act of someone who wants to stay small. She stopped pacing. I didn't save you because of destiny. I saved you because I'm not heartless. Kale nodded. I know. Silence fell. Then Kale said something unexpected. I can help you shift. Alice froze. My wolf can't shift. She can, Kale said. She's been trying for years. But she can't break the ritual on her own. Alice swallowed. How do you know this? Because I felt the block when you touched me, Kale said. It felt like chains. Alice sat slowly. Chains. Of spirit. Not metal. Very old magic. His voice darkened. Magic that shouldn't exist. Alice felt something in her chest tighten, then crack, fear, hope, confusion blending into one. Kale shifted closer. Let me guide you, he said quietly. Just to try. Alice hesitated. She should say no. She should throw him out. She should stay safe. But something in her, something deep, leaned toward him. Fine, she whispered. What do I do? Kale nodded and took her hands gently in his. Close your eyes. Alice obeyed. Now breathe. Slow. She inhaled. Exhaled. Good, Kale murmured. Now focus on the place behind your heart. That's where your wolf rests. Alice tried. For a moment she felt nothing. Then, faint, like something buried under ice, she heard it. A growl. A heartbeat. A pulse. Her wolf. Kale's voice reached her through the haze. Call to her. Alice whispered inside her mind. Can you hear me? The answer came like a flicker of light. Yes. Alice gasped, eyes flying open. I heard her. Kale smiled softly, warm and proud. Good. Again. Alice closed her eyes and reached deeper. Come forward, she whispered. Please. Her wolf responded with a strong pulse, stronger than ever before. Then something inside Alice snapped open. Heat flooded her body. Bones shifted. Skin prickled. A crackling sound filled the cabin. And Kale whispered, Alice, you're shifting. Alice gasped as her vision blurred, her limbs trembled, her heartbeat roared. And then, Alice Thorne shifted for the first time in her life. Her wolf form was small but glowing, silver streaks through white fur, eyes bright blue like frozen water. Kale's eyes widened with awe. Beautiful, he whispered. Alice's wolf trembled, taking shaky steps, overwhelmed by freedom. She pressed her muzzle against his hand instinctively. Kale stroked her fur gently. You're free now, he said softly. Alice whimpered, a sound full of joy, fear, and relief all at once. For the first time in her life, her wolf was real. Alive. Awake. And Kale had been the key. Outside, the last winds of the storm howled. But inside the cabin, something far more powerful had begun. The morning after Alice shifted for the first time was quiet, too quiet. Snow still pressed thickly against the cabin walls, but the storm had finally died down. A soft bluish light filled the room. Alice, back in human form, shivered under her blanket, exhausted but strangely alive, like every breath tasted new. Kale sat near the fire, sharpening a knife he'd taken from her kitchen. He didn't need it. Alice knew that now. His power didn't come from steel. It came from something deeper, older. He glanced at her when she stirred. You should rest, Kale said. Shifting for the first time takes a toll. Alice wrapped the blanket tighter. I'm fine. He gave her a look that said he didn't believe her. You passed out for 3 hours. That is not fine. She looked away, cheeks warming. Well, I didn't die. Barely, he muttered. Alice watched him for a moment. His wounds had nearly closed, leaving faint golden lines across his skin, glowing softly like embers beneath flesh. No normal wolf healed like that. No normal wolf spoke of ancient rituals and broken magic, either. She took a shaky breath. So, what happened last night? Was the beginning. Kale finished for her. Alice felt her chest tighten. The beginning of what? Of something dangerous, he said quietly. Before Alice could ask more, Cale stiffened. His head snapped toward the window. His eyes darkened, no, not darkened, flashed. Gold to red. Get back, he whispered. Alice froze. What? Cale grabbed her shoulders and pushed her toward the far corner of the cabin. His voice was low, sharp, deadly. They're here. Alice's breath caught. Who? The front door exploded inward. Wood shattered, snow blasted inside, and 3 large men stormed through, cloaked, masked, and carrying silver weapons. The moment Silver touched the air, Alice felt her wolf shrink in fear. Silver was poison to wolves in any form. Cale shifted instantly, not fully into a wolf, but into something in between. His teeth elongated, his eyes burned crimson gold, his muscles thickened, and a low, animal growl shook the walls. One of the masked men shouted. There. Get the girl. The girl. Not Cale. Alice felt the words hit like ice. Cale lunged. The first attacker flew across the room, smashing into the wall so hard the wood cracked. But the others moved fast, too fast for humans. Werewolves. One slashed a silver blade across Cale's back. A hiss of smoke rose from his skin as the silver burned through muscle. Cale roared in agony, a sound that shook Alice to her bones. No, she cried, rushing forward. Cale's hand shot out and caught her wrist. His grip was firm, not hurting, but undeniable. Stay back, he growled. I will not lose you. Alice stared, stunned. Lose her? They barely knew each other. Before she could react, one of the cloaked men moved behind her. She twisted, but too slow, something heavy slammed across her shoulders. A silver net. Alice screamed as it burned through her clothes, scorching her skin, sinking into her wolf. The pain was blinding, worse than anything she'd felt in her life. She collapsed to the floor, gasping, shaking. Cale roared, let her go. But there were too many attackers. Even as he tore through 2 of them, the last one unfurled another net dripping with soul-rot poison, the same blackened substance she'd seen in Cale's wounds. Cale! Alice cried, reaching toward him. Cale tried to reach her. He tried. But the silver blade in the third attacker's hand stabbed into his side, pumping more poison into his body. His knees buckled. His eyes dimmed. Alice sobbed, fighting against the burning net. Cale, get up. Please. He tried to stand. He failed. The poison made his limbs tremble violently. 2 attackers grabbed Alice by the arms, dragging her toward the door. Snow and cold wind lashed her face. Let go of me, she screamed, kicking and thrashing. One of the men laughed. Quiet, girl. You belong to the king now. Alice froze, breath catching. The what? The man leaned down, eyes gleaming through his mask. You heard me. The king wants you. Alive. Alice's stomach twisted. The king? Why would the king want her? But she had no time to think. Cale, crawling forward, blood pouring down his chest, reached toward her with shaking fingers. Alice, he rasped. Don't go. Before he could finish, a boot slammed into his jaw, knocking him to the floor. Cale. Alice screamed. Her voice tore from her throat like a wound. She fought harder, her wolf clawing at her insides, desperate to get free. But the silver net kept her pinned and powerless. The snow outside swallowed them whole as she was dragged away. Her last sight of Cale was his body slumping to the ground, eyes dimming, blood mixing with melting snow. Alice screamed his name again and again. But the storm carried her voice away. Alice lost track of time. She was thrown into a metal cage on the back of a large wagon, hands bound with silver cuffs that burned her skin. The cloak-wearing men spoke little, only murmuring to each other in low voices. The forest blurred past. Alice trembled, both from cold and fear. Where are you taking me? She asked, voice cracking. One of the men grunted. To the capital. Alice's heart stopped. Why? To stand trial. Trial for what? She demanded. The man didn't look back. For attempting to murder the king. Alice's blood turned to ice. That's insane. I've never even met the king. The man chuckled darkly. Save it for the court. Alice rattled the cuffs. I didn't hurt anyone. Let me out. The man slapped the cage with the flat of his blade, making the metal ring. "Try screaming again," he said coldly. "I'll break your legs to quiet you." Alice shrank back, tears burning her eyes. She wanted to shift. Wanted to fight. Wanted to run. But the silver drained everything. Her wolf whimpered weakly in the back of her mind. "I'm sorry. I'm trying." Alice whispered internally, "I know. It's not your fault." Hours turned into a blur of forest, snow, and dread. By the time the wagon finally reached the capital, the sky was dark and filled with lanterns. The city walls were tall and carved with ancient symbols Alice had never seen before. Trumpets blared the moment the wagon approached. Dozens of soldiers surrounded them, weapons drawn. Alice was dragged from the cage, her knees hitting icy stone. Her breath puffed out in the cold air. Crowds gathered instantly. There she is. The assassin. She tried to kill the king. Look at her, just a weak Omega. Alice's heart pounded. None of this made sense. How could she be accused of harming the king? She was shoved up the marble steps of the high court, through massive doors, and into a courtroom so grand it took her breath away. Tall pillars. Golden banners. A throne made of carved obsidian wolves. And standing before it all, a man in heavy royal robes. The regent. His eyes were cold and sharp as knives. He looked Alice up and down with disgust. "Bring the criminal forward." Alice stumbled as she was pushed onto a raised platform. The room fell silent. The regent stepped forward. "This mountain witch," he announced, "is charged with treason, seduction, and attempted assassination of the king." The crowd gasped. Alice's voice cracked. "I didn't do anything. I saved someone." Silence, the regent snapped. "You are an Omega. Speak only when told." Alice trembled with rage and humiliation. The regent paced slowly around her, as if inspecting a dangerous animal. "Tell me," he said, "how does a low-born girl like you end up alone with the king in the mountains?" Alice blinked. The what?" "The king," the regent repeated. "Who else do you think you dragged into your cabin like some common stray?" Alice's heart stopped. Kale. The dying wolf. The man with glowing eyes. The man whose name she barely knew. Kale was the king. The world tilted beneath her feet. "You're lying," she whispered. The regent smirked. "We shall let him speak for himself." He raised his hand. A guard stepped forward, holding a scroll. The regent read aloud, voice booming. "By order of the crown, Alice Thorne is to be found guilty of attempting to poison His Majesty and sentenced to execution at dawn." "Stop." The doors slammed open. Gasps filled the court. Alice whipped her head toward the sound. And her knees nearly gave out. Kale stood in the doorway. Alive. Breathing. Radiating fury. He wore a dark cloak, half torn, blood still dried across his chest. His eyes burned bright gold, too bright. Almost glowing with rage. Soldiers drew swords. The regent's face drained of color. "Your Majesty," he stuttered. "You should not be on your feet." Kale didn't look at him. His gaze locked onto Alice. For a moment, Alice forgot how to breathe. Kale strode forward, each step heavy with power. The room trembled. Shadows shifted. Wolves in human form dropped to their knees instinctively. Kale stopped at the foot of the platform. His voice was cold enough to freeze the air. "Release her." "Enno," the regent sputtered. "She's dangerous." Kale turned slowly. In an instant, the temperature in the room dropped. Frost crawled across the floor where Kale stood. "Do not defy me." The regent's lips trembled. He gestured quickly. Guards rushed to unlock Alice's chains. As soon as the cuffs fell, Alice crumpled to the floor, her wrists raw and bleeding. Kale reached forward, steadying her shoulders. His touch was warm. "Alice," he said softly. "I'm here." Alice's throat tightened. "You're alive." His jaw clenched. "I told you I wouldn't leave you." Alice didn't know whether to cry or collapse. The regent cleared his throat shakily. "Your Majesty, we thought she." Kale cut him off with a stare that could kill. "You accused my mate of treason." The room erupted in gasps. Alis froze. Kale called her his mate. The regent's voice shook. My king, she performed forbidden magic. She saved my life, Kale growled. And you dare use her courage against her? But Kale stepped forward, voice booming with ancient authority. She is under my protection. Touch her again, and I will burn this court to ash. Alis's breath hitched. Protection. Not accusation. Not fear. Protection. Kale put an arm around her shoulders and pulled her gently into his side. She didn't resist. For the first time since the attack, she felt safe. But the regent wasn't finished. He lifted a trembling hand and pointed at Alis. She carries forbidden power, he hissed. Her wolf was chained for a reason. She is the lost Luna, an omen of destruction. If you keep her alive, she will ruin you. The court burst into whispers. Kale stiffened. Alis's blood ran cold. Lost Luna. Chained at birth. Omen. None of this made sense. Kale's voice was quiet, deadly. Who told you this? The regent smiled thinly. Your beloved traitor. He stepped aside, revealing a figure behind him. Alis's heart shattered. Standing there, dressed in royal silk, wearing a cold smile, was Lyra. Her childhood best friend. Alive. Changed. And staring at Alis with cruel satisfaction. Alis, Lyra purred. Did you miss me? Alis's breath fractured. Lyra was alive. Lyra was royal. Lyra knew the regent. And Lyra had betrayed her. Kale growled low, stepping slightly in front of Alis. The regent lifted his hand. Begin the Luna trial. Alis's entire world collapsed around her. And the true nightmare began. If you want, I will continue with chapters 7 and 8 next. Same style, same length. Just say. Continue below is a full, detailed 2,000-word elaboration of chapters 7 and 8 ONLY, written in easy, cinematic English with dialogue, emotion, tension, and high-stakes action. I will not go beyond these 2 chapters. Chapter 7, The Battle Under the Crown. Elaborated version. The High Court exploded into chaos. Guards shouted. Wolves half-shifted. Courtiers scrambled away from the center of the room as Kale's power surged like a living storm. Alis stood frozen. Lyra stood across from her, calm and cruel, wearing the silk of a royal Luna. The regent hovered by her side, gripping her arm like a trophy he'd proudly stolen. Kale positioned himself slightly in front of Alis, shielding her. His voice dropped to a dangerous growl. What have you done, regent? The regent smiled, thin and sharp. What I must do to protect the kingdom from her. Protect it. Kale thundered. You enslaved my people. You poisoned me. And you dared manipulate the throne while I was dying. The regent's smile didn't break. You were weak. Your judgment clouded. And she. He jabbed a finger at Alis. She is the reason for your downfall. Alis flinched. The room buzzed with whispers. Kale's eyes flashed gold. You don't speak about her. Oh, the regent sneered. You can pretend she is a savior, but she is an omen. The lost Luna, cursed since birth. Her parents hid her because they knew what she would become. Alis felt her chest tighten. What are you talking about? I'm not cursed. Lyra laughed coldly. You still don't know? Oh, Alis, you were always slow to learn the truth. Alis swallowed hard. Lyra, why are you doing this? Because, Lyra said, stepping closer, this is the life I was meant to have. The throne. The power. The title of Luna. Not you. Alis staggered. Lyra, we were like sisters. Sisters. Lyra spat. I was never your sister. I was the spare. The shadow. The one no one cared about because you were chosen. Chosen for what? Lyra smiled like a blade. To save or destroy the king. And the regent made sure you'd destroy him instead. Kale growled. You dared involve her in your treason? Lyra tilted her head. Oh, but she was involved before she was even born. Kale's jaw clenched. You manipulated her entire life. Of course, Lyra said. We silenced her wolf before she could grow powerful. Funny how easily you break people when you start young. Alice felt sick. Her vision blurred. My wolf, she whispered. You did that to me. Yes, Lyra said bluntly. I was 10. It was my first ritual. I was praised for it. Alice felt like she'd been stabbed. You hurt me. You chained me. You were meant to stay weak, Lyra said. You were meant to die quietly, far away, so the prophecy died with you. Cale roared. Enough. The walls trembled. Frost raced across the floor. The flames in the torches flickered wildly. Guards backed away from Cale in fear. The regent lifted a hand. Kill them, both of them. Everything happened at once. Wolves lunged. Blades flashed. Magic crackled. Cale moved faster than Alice could follow. He shifted halfway, wolf ears, claws, fangs, his eyes burning molten gold. Alice stumbled back, dodging a silver-tipped spear. Her wolf screamed inside her, desperate to protect Cale. Stay behind me, Cale growled. No. Alice shouted back. You'll die again if I do nothing. She grabbed a fallen guard's sword, but her hands shook. Silver traces on the blade burned her skin. She gritted her teeth and swung anyway. One guard lunged at her, snarling, which Alice dodged, barely missing a slash that would have torn her throat. Cale intercepted the guard with a brutal swipe of his clawed hand. The man flew across the room and crashed into a pillar. Alice! Cale shouted. Stay close. But before she could reach him, 2 guards grabbed her arms and yanked her backward. Alice screamed. Cale! He turned sharply, and a spear plunged into his side. Alice watched his eyes widen in shock before he dropped to one knee, blood spilling down his torso. No! Alice shrieked. Cale tore the spear out with a roar, but the damage was done. Poison shimmered on the tip. His hands trembled. The regent stepped forward, triumphant. You're weak, Cale. You were always too soft. Soft, Cale spat, is not the same as broken. He tried to stand, but another guard swung a chain around his neck, yanking him backward. Cale roared, writhing against the silver chain burning into his skin. Alice felt something inside her snap. She didn't think. She didn't breathe. She moved. Her wolf surged to the front of her mind, helping her twist free from the guards. Her hands glowed, a soft silver-blue light bursting from her fingertips. The guards recoiled. What is that? One shouted. She's using forbidden magic. Alice didn't care. She shoved her hands outward. A shockwave blasted through the room. Every guard within 5 meters flew backward as if struck by a giant invisible hammer. The chains holding Cale dissolved, melting into ash. The entire high court fell silent. Alice stood panting, staring at her glowing hands. I didn't mean to. Cale looked up at her with awe. Alice, your power. The regent stepped back, fear finally cracking his mask. She's awakened. The prophecy is real. She's the echo. Alice didn't hear the rest. Because Lyra lunged from the side, a silver dagger raised high. Alice Thorne, Lyra hissed, you were never meant to survive this story. Alice flinched. Cale roared. And then, Lyra's blade plunged straight into Alice's chest. Alice gasped. Her body jerked backward, her hands flying to the dagger embedded between her ribs. The room froze. Cale's scream ripped through the court. Alice. Alice collapsed to her knees, the world dimming. Her breath shuddered. She tasted blood. She felt her wolf fading. Cale caught her before she hit the floor, cradling her against him, panic and fury trembling through his body. No, 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 he whispered, voice breaking. Stay with me, Alice. Stay. Alice coughed weakly. Cale. I'm sorry. Don't you dare apologize, he choked out. Don't you dare leave me. Her vision dimmed at the edges. I can't breathe. Look at me. Cale roared, shaking. Do not close your eyes. Her lids grew heavy. Alice Eno. Cale pressed his forehead to hers. His tears dripped onto her cheeks. Please. I've already lost too much. Don't make me lose you too. His voice cracked like broken glass. Alice used the last of her fading strength to whisper, Kale. Her hand slipped from his chest. Her eyes closed. Her body went limp. For one terrible moment, Kale stopped breathing. Then, something burst from Alice's chest. A blinding silver light exploded outward, filling the room with pure radiance. The dagger in her chest disintegrated. Her wounds closed. Her body lifted off the ground, suspended in a column of shimmering light. Symbols, ancient runes, glowed across her skin. Her eyes snapped open, glowing bright silver. She descended slowly, landing gently in Kale's arms. Alive. He stared at her, wide-eyed, whispering, "Alice, what are you?" Her voice echoed, layered with the voice of her wolf. "I am the," echoed Luna. The court trembled. The regent staggered backward. No, no, impossible. Alice rose to her feet, light pouring from her palms. She touched Kale's wounded side. Golden light surged from her hands into his body. His wounds healed instantly. Kale looked at her like she was a miracle. Alice turned toward the regent. "You hurt my people. You poisoned my mate." Her voice carried power. "You will answer for your crimes." Panic spread through the court. The battle was far from over. But everything had changed. Alice had awakened. And nothing would ever be the same again. The news spread across the kingdom faster than fire. The lost Luna has awakened. The king lives. The regent has fled. War is coming. Within 2 days, chaos swallowed the capital. 2 warlords, powerful alphas from the northern and eastern territories, declared the throne unstable and rallied their armies. They accused Kale and Alice of tainting the sacred bloodline with forbidden magic. Thousands of wolves marched toward the capital. Alice stood on the balcony of the royal fortress, staring at the horizon. Smoke rose in the distance where enemy armies camped. Kale stepped beside her, placing a warm hand on her waist. "You should rest." Alice sighed. "I can't. Not when all this is because of me." Kale turned her gently to face him. "This is not your fault. The warlords have wanted rebellion for years. You only forced them to reveal their plans sooner." Alice rested her forehead against his chest, feeling his heartbeat. "What if I'm not strong enough?" Kale's fingers brushed her cheek. "Then you will become strong. You're not alone anymore." Alice lifted her gaze. "Are you afraid? For the kingdom?" Kale said. "Yes. And for me." His eyes softened. "I would burn the world before I let anyone take you." Alice swallowed the rush of emotion that rose inside her. But she didn't have time to dwell on it. A soldier rushed onto the balcony. "Your Majesty, enemy forces are assembling. They want battle." Kale nodded. "Prepare the army. The Luna and I will join shortly." The soldier saluted and ran. Alice looked at Kale. "We're going to fight." "We must," Kale said. "But I won't force you." Alice squared her shoulders. "Kale, I won't hide." "Not anymore." His lips quirked. "I know." The battlefield roared with noise, soldiers shouting, wolves shifting, metal clashing. Smoke rose where torches burned through the snow. Kale stood at the front of the royal army, towering in his armored form. His wolf aura burned like molten gold. Alice stood beside him, her hands glowing faint silver. Her presence alone filled the soldiers with awe. She's the Luna. She healed the king. She came from the mountains. She's the one with the prophecy. Alice took a shaky breath. "What if I fail them?" Kale placed a steadying hand on hers. "You won't." The enemy army approached, a sea of wolves wearing black armor, banners marked with snarling wolf heads. At the front rode 2 giant alphas, Warlord Draven and Warlord Surik. Draven raised his sword. "Kale, surrender the girl and we spare your people." Kale snarled. "You will not touch her." Surik laughed. "Then your kingdom dies with you." Alice stepped forward. "No." Her voice rang across the battlefield. She raised her hands. Light poured from her palms, washing over the royal soldiers. Their wounds healed. Their strength surged. Wolves who had been limping stood straight. Those near death opened their eyes. Gasps spread through the army. "Incredible. She healed all of us. The Luna is blessed." Kale watched her with or he didn't bother hiding. The enemies growled in fear. Surik shouted, "Kill her first." Alis braced herself. Kale roared, shifting fully. His wolf was massive, larger than any other on the field. Golden flames flickered across his fur. He charged into the enemy lines with devastating force, scattering wolves like leaves. Alis moved with him, light glowing around her fingers. She touched wounded soldiers as she passed, healing them instantly. Arrows flew. Alis raised a barrier of shimmering light, deflecting them. A giant wolf lunged at her. Alis spun, her light blasting the creature backward. "Unnatural," a soldier screamed. "She's a demon." Alis lifted her chin. "I'm a healer. Not a demon." Another wave of enemy wolves surrounded her. She lifted her hands, light exploding outward again, forcing them to retreat. Kale's voice echoed through the army. "Fight. Protect your Luna." The royal wolves surged with new strength. Battle raged for hours. The snow turned red. The sky darkened. Alis and Kale fought side by side, unstoppable. But victory wasn't easy. Alis collapsed to her knees after one attack, exhausted. Her magic weakened. Darkness flickered at the edges of her vision. Kale ran to her, shifting back to human form, panting hard. "Alis, stay with me." "I'm fine," she whispered. "Keep fighting." Kale cupped her face, fear in his eyes. "I can't lose you." "Not here." Alis squeezed his hand. "You won't." She gathered her fading strength. Her power burned painfully, but she pushed through, summoning one final burst of light. A shockwave rippled across the battlefield, knocking the enemy wolves back and lifting a shimmering silver veil around the royal army. Kale stared at her, stunned. "You protected all of us." Alis shook violently, barely conscious. I think so." Training bells rang. The warlords realized they couldn't win. Surik shouted, "Retreat." But Kale wasn't going to let them walk away. He shifted and lunged into their ranks. Alis watched him tear through their front lines with terrifying force. The enemy army broke. They fled. The battlefield fell silent except for panting wolves and moans of the injured. Alis collapsed completely, falling into Kale's arms as he ran back to her. He wrapped her in his cloak. "Alis," he whispered, voice shaking. "You saved us." She blinked weakly. "Did we win?" Kale kissed her forehead gently. "Yes, my Luna. We won." Alis smiled faintly before her eyes drifted closed. Kale held her tightly, refusing to let go. And as the first rays of sunlight touched the bloody snow, the royal army bowed, their king and his Luna victorious. But Kale knew this was only the beginning. The real war was still ahead. Alis woke slowly, feeling warmth on her face. For several seconds she didn't know where she was. The last thing she remembered was the battlefield, the light, Kale's voice. She blinked until the world came into focus. She was lying in a royal chamber, the largest bed she had ever seen, silk sheets, thick wolf fur blankets. The window was open, letting in a soft morning breeze that smelled of pine, smoke, and distant snow. Her body felt weak, but alive. "You're awake." Kale's voice came from the corner of the room. Alis turned her head. He sat in an ornate chair, arms crossed over his chest, hair unbound, golden eyes locked entirely on her. There were dark circles under his eyes, as if he hadn't slept in days. Alis's voice was a whisper. "How long was I out?" 2 days, Kale said. 2 very long days. Alis tried to sit up. Pain shot through her back and shoulders. Kale was at her side in seconds. "Easy. You burned through all your magic on the battlefield. You drained yourself nearly to death." Alis leaned into his support, wincing. Did we win?" Kale nodded. "The warlords fled. Their armies scattered." He hesitated. "For now, the capital is safe." Alis relaxed slightly and rested her head against the pillows. "What happened after I collapsed?" Kale looked down at his hands, as if the memory hurt. "I carried you inside. You were cold. Too still. I thought." His voice cracked. "I thought you were slipping away." Alis reached out weakly and brushed her fingers against his arm. "I'm still here." Yes, Kale said softly, covering her hand with his, but you could have died. She wanted to argue, but she didn't have the strength. After a long silence, Alis asked, "What about Lyra?" Kale's expression hardened instantly. "She's imprisoned in the lower cells. She will face judgment soon." Alis swallowed. She wasn't ready to face Lyra yet. Kale studied her quietly before asking, "Do you want to see her?" No. Alis said it quickly, then sighed. "Yes. I don't know." Kale nodded. "There is something she confessed. You should hear it from her." Alis tensed. "Confessed what?" Kale shook his head. "It's better you hear it with your own ears." Alis felt fear flutter in her chest. Something heavy was coming. Something she hadn't been prepared to face. "Take me," she whispered. Kale helped her stand. Her legs shook, but she refused to show weakness. She wrapped a cloak around herself, and together they walked through the stone hallways, torches flickering on the walls. The deeper they went, the colder the air became. Finally they reached a heavy iron door guarded by 2 soldiers. The guards stepped aside, opening it. Alis stood in front of a barred cell. Lyra sat inside, chained to the wall by silver cuffs, her once perfect hair tangled, her dress torn, but her eyes were still sharp as knives. The moment she saw Alis, Lyra smiled slowly. Well, look who lived." Alis took a shaky breath. "Why did you do it?" Lyra lifted her chin. "Why? Because it should have been me. The prophecy could have been mine. The power. The throne. But you," her expression twisted. "You took what was meant for me." Alis shook her head, tears forming. "I never took anything. I didn't even know any of this existed." "Exactly," Lyra snapped. "You didn't know. You didn't care. You didn't try. And yet everything belonged to you anyway." Kale growled deeply, but Alis raised a hand to silence him. "Tell me the truth," Alis whispered. "What happened when I was born?" Lyra smirked. "When you were born, the moon flared silver. The healers saw runes glow across your skin. They said you were an echoed Luna, one who could destroy or heal kings." Alis felt the world tilt. "I was a baby," she whispered. "How could I be dangerous?" "Because power attracts fear," Lyra hissed. "The regent wanted control. He told my parents you were a threat. He said the kingdom would fall because of you. So they did it." "Did what?" Alis asked hoarsely. Lyra smiled cruelly. "They silenced your wolf. On the night of your birth." Alis staggered backward. Kale grabbed her shoulders, steadying her. "They took my wolf," Alis whispered, voice breaking. "Before I could even speak. Before I could walk." Lyra nodded. "You were destined for greatness. And they were terrified of you." Alis's knees buckled. She clutched Kale's arm. How could they do that to a child? Lyra shrugged. "Fear makes people cruel. And you?" Alis asked painfully. "Why did you help them?" Lyra laughed softly. "I wanted the life you were born for. I wanted to be the chosen one." Alis swallowed. "So you ruined my entire life, because you were jealous?" Lyra leaned back against the wall with a sigh. "Yes." Alis wiped her tears with shaking fingers. "You became Luna. You had power. Why wasn't that enough?" Lyra's smile faded. Her eyes darkened. "Because the prophecy said the king's true mate would come from your bloodline. And deep down, I knew, no matter what I did, it was always going to be you." Kale snarled, shifting slightly, rage vibrating off him. "You will answer for every crime you've committed." Lyra smirked. "I know. I'm ready." Alis took a long, shaky breath. "I thought you were my friend." "I never was," Lyra replied coldly. "I only played the role until I grew strong enough to take what should have been mine." Alis nodded slowly. "That's all I needed to know." She turned to Kale. "Her punishment is mine to decide." Kale bowed his head. "As you wish." Alis looked back at Lyra through burning eyes. "Lyra of Silver Crest," she whispered, "I sentence you to exile. Beyond the northern border. Never return." Lyra's face slackened in shock. You're not killing me?" Alis shook her head. "You don't deserve death." You deserve emptiness. Life without power. Life without a pack. Lyra's mouth trembled. For the first time, fear filled her eyes. Alis stepped back. It's over. Then she turned away, letting Kale guide her out. But her chest ached with a pain she didn't know how to name. The betrayal of a sister who had never loved her. The following days were quiet, strangely quiet, as the capital rebuilt itself. Soldiers returned from the battlefield. Families reunited. Wolves howled at night, mourning the lost. Alis walked the courtyard slowly, her wolf humming inside her, stronger than ever. Kale found her standing beneath the silver-leafed moon tree, sunlight streaming through its branches. He smiled softly. You look better. Alis nodded. I'm healing. Kale hesitated before saying, there's something we haven't discussed. Alis arched a brow. What? You awakened your lunar gift. Kale stepped closer. That means the bond, the true mate bond, is forming. Alis's breath caught. She looked away. I'm still trying to understand everything. Kale touched her cheek gently. So am I. Their silence was warm, not awkward, but full of something deep and unspoken. Alis whispered. I'm afraid. Kale's thumb brushed her skin softly. Of me. Of losing myself, she said. Of becoming something I don't recognize. Kale pressed his forehead to hers. You won't lose yourself. You'll become more of who you already are. Alis closed her eyes, letting the warmth of his presence steady her. A messenger arrived suddenly, bowing deeply. Your Majesties, delegates from all 7 territories have arrived. They await you in the throne hall. Alis stepped back, nerves coiling in her stomach. I'm not ready for councils or politics. Kale took her hand. You don't have to be ready. You just have to be yourself. They walked to the throne hall together. When they entered, the room fell silent. Leaders from every territory stared at them, at Kale, the Golden King healed from the edge of death, and at Alis, silver-eyed and glowing with new power. Kale stepped forward. Thank you all for coming. A northern elder spoke. We heard the lunar lives. We heard she healed the army. A murmur spread. Alis felt dozens of eyes pierce her. Kale squeezed her hand. Not only does she live, he said proudly, but she is the reason the kingdom stands. Alis swallowed hard. A southern alpha bowed. Lunar Alis, what are your intentions? Alis lifted her chin. Her voice was soft but strong. I intend to heal what fear has broken. Omegas, healers, lone wolves, no one will be silenced again. This kingdom belongs to all wolves, not just the powerful. Shock rippled through the hall. A Western beater said carefully, that is a bold change, Luna. Alis nodded. Good. It's time for bold. Kale smiled at her, pride shining in his eyes. Hours later, after long discussions and agreements, the council left satisfied and shaken by the new Luna's courage. Kale led Alis out onto the balcony overlooking the city. The setting sun painted the sky gold and pink. Alis leaned against the railing. It feels unreal. Kale stood behind her, wrapping his arms gently around her waist. You're real. Your power is real. Your place here is real. Alis rested her hands on his. I'm not used to being needed. Kale pressed a kiss to her shoulder. Get used to it. Your kingdom needs you. She turned in his arms, heart pounding. Kale, she whispered. What now? Kale cupped her face gently. Now the bond completes. Alis's breath hitched. Are you sure? Yes, he murmured. If you want it. Alis closed her eyes. Her wolf whispered inside her. Yes. Alis opened her eyes again. I want it. Kale pulled her into a deep embrace, his forehead resting against hers. Silver and gold light burst between them, swirling around like fireflies, weaving together as if their souls were fusing. Alis gasped as warmth spread from her chest to her fingertips. Kale whispered, You are my echo. And you are my heart, Alis whispered back. The bond locked into place with a pulse of energy that rippled across the entire capital. Wolves howled in celebration as the new king and Luna sealed their bond. Months passed. The kingdom healed. The council reformed with new roles for Omegas and healers. The borders stabilized. Peace returned. Alis became a symbol of hope. A healer. A protector. A Luna like none before her. And one crisp winter morning, Kale found her standing by the moon tree again, hand on her stomach, smiling softly. Alis, he asked gently. What is it? She took his hand and placed it over her belly. Kale froze. His eyes widened. A child, he whispered. Alis nodded. Yes. Kale lifted her into his arms, laughing in disbelief and joy, holding her as if she were the most precious thing in all the realms. She kissed him softly. We're going to be parents. Kale whispered into her hair. And the world will know our child as the heir of wolves. Alis smiled. And as snow began to fall again, she whispered. The Omega who once carried a dying king through a storm, now carries the future of a kingdom. If this story gripped your heart, imagine what's coming next, and you don't want to miss it. If you enjoyed this episode, hit that like button right now. It tells YouTube this story is worth sharing. Drop a comment below and tell me. Should Alis face her past, or should she focus on ruling the kingdom with Kale? I read every single comment and your ideas shape the next chapter. And most importantly, subscribe and turn on all notifications so you never miss the next episode. Trust me, the twists coming next will make everything you've seen so far feel like the calm before the storm. You're part of this story now. See you in the next chapter.